Thank you. And we're sideways, aren't we?
That's right.
Good evening, everyone. This is quite a difficult one to actually distill down into a précis, because lots of things happened and there were lots of colors of views. So we know things are really black and white, and this became interesting in parts. And as always happens, personalities play a part. So I won't go too deeply into that. Those of you who have back numbers of the magazines, Die Pickup did a very good series, magazine 181 to 188, with some of the more political ends. So we're trying to look a bit more at the machines and their drivers, because drivers are important. Sorry,
We'll just admit an overtook couple. There we are.
Right, this is intriguing. We'd only found very poor shots until Peter came in with some glass slides. And this is actually the crispest shot we have of the River-esque Pulteney tender chassis stuck down in the back of the engine shed. The other thing that I only discovered yesterday was that it wasn't given by the company to the society as a base. Colin Gilbert charged them £250. And just an aside on the money setup, when Di did his 2006 pieces, he converted up to current values. So he was actually using a factor of 40, which in such a short time is a bit boggling. So you talk about £100 and you think it doesn't actually matter that much. But if you're talking about £4,000, it does. So I'll try and keep away from the figures, but that was one that stuck immediately. So Clarkson's of York got the contract, and the other options were not really going to work at the time. Possibly with hindsight, waiting a little bit and getting someone else to go for the tender might have produced a different result, but we still got a result. So we don't have very many pictures of the build in progress. I think that one was when Doug went down. But as soon as it was finished, these are pictures from Clarkson's themselves. And they've got the nice shiny end product. So we got quite a few of those. It was fed by compressor so that they could move it out of the workshop. And we think the guy driving is Clarkson's son, Herbert, we think. Right. Then it's quite an intriguing sequence. The whole process of doing the transport by Providence would have been a real coup had not two things happened. The first thing that happened was that it was due to take place in the summer months, not on December the 2nd, 3rd and 4th, with a snowstorm coming in on the 4th. So it would have had much more positive press if that had happened. And already there were murmurings of dissatisfaction, shall we say, which didn't help. So there's dive pickup on the left, guiding the buffer, and Douglas trying to commit suicide underneath by moving bits of wood around and getting very close to the engine. It does get very close. And obviously, as the wonderful traction engine. The second problem will come to once we're set off. So there were plenty of press photographers there, you know, Yorkshire Post and a couple of stringers were there. And once it had got loaded and set off, the second dramatic disadvantage they had was that there was an accident on the A19, and the tender, which should have been following Providence and actually supplying it with water at the right time, was definitely, we think, about 40 miles away at the time. And that in its turn caused leaking problems later on, because low water levels. Managed to find some color ones, which are not brilliant, but they are at least in color. We've no idea where this was, although I've only just noticed there's some tracks down the bottom. We'll chase that up. So just to prove that it all happened in color, then we go back to black and white. This is up on the top of Bozemoor, and the wagon has caught up, but you can see it's a bit crisp. They stopped over at Appleby overnight on the Saturday in the grammar school coach car park, thanks to the headmaster who came to help. And they got down before the snow got really heavy across Bozemoor. And we find some more colour pics. Again, we're not absolutely sure where we are, and the roads have changed considerably between Penrith and Keswick. Someone might recognise the buildings, but slightly strange place to stop. That one we know is at Threlkeld, and the gang are all there. I think Tom Eden turned up as well. Certainly Douglas was out with his camera. And they made it as far as Keswick, running late, but they got that far. We think there's one photo of the actual arrival at 11:30 something on the Sunday night. But I can't find it at the moment, basically. This is quite an interesting shot because they're just doing the unloading on Monday morning. The camping coaches are still in place, and they didn't go away till the spring of next year to Eskdale. And on the right are the sheets for the new carriage shed. And if you look really carefully, just ahead of the loco, Mite that is, you can see the frames of the new carriage shed just about going in. So obviously it had been on the back of a wagon behind Providence for effectively 3 days, so did need a little bit of sprucing up. And we don't know who's doing the cleaning. We know it isn't Graham. It has a look of Dick Walmsley, but no one is sure. So having cleaned it up a bit, they started pootling about with it. And again, you'll see the frame of the new carriage shed behind. So this is Graham and Tom gently seeing how far they can get. And this picture was always called the Brains Trust, the combined experience of Tom and Dick Nick, with Graham adding his hapus. And obviously Tom and Dick Nick had a few plays, and I really don't think they'd gone very far by this stage. But Graham at least managed to get it into decent condition for some of the press photos that were taken. Then they set off up the line with a train, and this was the first steam test, according to Tom. Got as far as Fisher Ground, and one of the piston rods broke on the near side. So with some slight modifications at this point, and as Stuart pointed out, damping down the fire by putting the shovel over the chimney. And it's a rare mix of people. Actually, just looking at that, the guy on the left with the hat could be the Reverend Murray Hodges, possibly. That's something we'll have to chase up. They did get as far as Delgas, and presumably then rang to get some sort of relief, because it wasn't going to take them all the way back down. You'll notice that there's a stone in front of the front wheel, and there's a certain amount of conrod missing on that side. And Tom's quote was, "The Mite in trouble with a broken piston rod. I came to the rescue to drive it back to Ravenglass on one cylinder." And the nice touch is that we've actually got it written in his handwriting on the back of the print that we've got. So eventually it was behaving itself, and the commissioning day came along. So you have Lord Wakefield on the left. Patrick Sato was the Preservation Society chair at the time, and Alderman Tim Westall was chair of Cumbria County Council, and he was a last-minute replacement for Sir John Brocklebank, who unfortunately was in hospital at the time. The other point to note is if you go right from the official party, there's a lady in a red hat, then a young lad with a very strange looking camera, then someone with a light anorak, who is to turn out eventually to be our curator. And there he is, racing Graham up so that he can take his place at the front of the train.
Bentley Sky School.
Yes.
I'm sure that's a story you like to tell, and was it was going to be on the front page of...
Well, he was on the local news on the telly, and I think his comment was, it made it difficult to go in on Monday morning with a sick note. But that was because they had Saturday morning school, the good old days. Anyway, did manage with a really substantial load of people, because you've got what would be a normal load of opens, and then you've got 3 Jaywick saloons tacked on the back, and then there was another open on the back of that. So it was a substantial load, and that must have been a moment of great relief for Tom to actually get to that point. Graham sort of fairly non-committal. So yeah, nice result. One of the other problems that happened was apparently there was a problem with priming on the paint job, disputed of course by Mr. Clarkson. But when it was all rubbed down and reprimed and repainted, from that day to this, we haven't had that problem. So I'll leave that to speak for itself. And there's a slightly better, worse shot. It did make it look a bit shabby. So I've jumped a little bit here, but from 70 to 76, it turned into this cherry red livery. And just a note there for Christopher, the gentleman is lining it out freehand.
Start winding you up,
Dave. So after Graham, we have to sort of try and fit in all the drivers if we can. After Graham, Benny came along, and just as the go on. Someone going to come in?
Yeah, it's just me, Trevor.
Hi, Trevor.
I'm stood at the back of the tender watching with my hands on my hips.
I was waiting to see if anyone spotted him. Yeah, so that's Trevor looking to the future, you see. He's looking at driving at some stage. So that's Benny. And it's just another shot of the cherry red with the tanker, which chassis of which was the old Earth's tender frame, if memory serves. Be with you in a sec. And the footbridge is actually a pristine silver color. That's almost as good a time gauge as my various signs on the gents' toilets. Then the society, I believe, paid for the first brake pump to be fitted, and it seemed to go through quite a few variations, which I probably don't need to go into too much. But that was how it started out. Oh yes, then Jack took over with Trevor, of course. Then Glyn Wells and Jeff Holland shared the driving for a little while. And that's just a nice picture in a nice location. Always a good advert. I wasn't quite sure what the gizmo was on top of the tender. Stuart informs me it's a compressor. Again, if anyone can confirm, that would be handy. It just looks as though it's about to take off.
I think I've read a reference to, I think it was 1997-ish, of the loco failing with an air pump problem and them fitting the battery compressor to keep the show on the road because things were dropping left, right, and centre or something like that.
Yeah, that would figure. Sorry, I'm writing as well. I can't write and talk. I'm a man.
I have a feeling it was also the same day as a massive fell fire as well. Oh yeah, I think there's an article from about that time of.
Was that the Sam Dixon one?
Yes, yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, that means I can confirm it because Sam dated his photos. All right, dig over. Yes, so Randaron appears. So we see him in all his glory. And he was there from 79 to October 2003, and then went part-time through to 2008. So did a good stint with his new general manager. And he went on, he went on holiday, and we're not sure whether this is the first holiday in October 1980 or whether it was later. We have some confusion and very few dates on these.
That will be a later one because it's Simpson in the Great Eastern Blow, which I think.
I told you that, Dave. I told you.
Right, that's fine. So that's more likely to be either late 90s or 2003, we think.
90s, it would be 1997 or 2003 off the top of my head.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I would think, Dave, 2003. It's got the big air pump on,
Right.
and certainly the very, very first visit it would only have the small pump on.
Yeah.
Guessing.
Yeah. I mean, it takes us closer to it. It's just we have quite a large number of.
The clacks aren't up the front end on that picture. And they are in the later ones, which is what's confused us. And we know there's a Sierra or an Escort in the background.
So yeah, we're still working on that. We think we know when that was, and it's not Mite's 21st birthday. It was the Society's 21st birthday. So we have a good idea on that one. We like this one because you got Ron at the back, and again, as with Trevor, you've got Ian Birch getting used to Mite as he would later drive it. Why have I did that one? Maybe just because it's the 25th, 25 years of Mite.
It's a different sign on the end of the cafe as well.
Yes. We've just found, we've just found that sign in the Undercroft. So that's coming out to go on our walls. But I haven't got that one. That's all by the by. So in Western Star was also that same time, 25 years of Mite 2, so it makes it 91. And we have a couple of pictures, just done in the same style, but not over Bozemoor. Still went into Keswick, which must have been quite an interesting maneuver, and ended up watering the streets.
You don't see cars there now.
No. No, it's all pedestrian, and then set off again. Pictures aren't brilliant, but at least they're in colour. Then, speaking of holidays, we think it was 93 that it went to the Beer Valley, and this is one of our additions in the last hour, because, as Stuart quite rightly pointed out, there's one driver we hadn't got, and that's Corky. So now we have. Is that Sean or Katie?
That's Sean. And on the right-hand side, I think it's a very young Bob King, who's the Bure Valley's engineering wizard. So I think that's him. We'll find out because he watches them when they go on YouTube later on.
All right. Right. Okay. Okay, on the right. Okay. Then, as Stuart suggested, it was a sort of swan song for Ron to chug off to Dresden, and produced some really nice pictures, nice contrasts. We're not even looking at the wording.
Or the Mark II Golf.
It's quite interesting juxtaposition with the road. You can imagine that causing accidents, can't you? I just love that as a shot. It's a nice shot. Then, unfortunately, there are the occasional mishaps, so I did have to slip two in. Well, two of the same one. Now, I am fairly sure that I should know the gentleman on the right in that shot, and I can't think of a name. So if anyone can come up with the name.
Ian Dennis.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I lost it. So we'll move on from that.
Christmas 2000.
Yes. Yeah.
Wasn't that the one that ended up on the front page of the Sun?
Yeah.
Yeah, very probably.
Send for the reindeer or something. They
Got lots of publicity.
yeah. Yeah. Is it good? What I want to know is why wasn't Flash taking pictures? Never mind. Oh, we seem to have gone back to Dresden. Oh, we have, yes. More nice shots of Dresden. Then back down to Romney again. And if Andy's with us tonight, I'm sure he'll confirm dates and things because that's him piloting. So there isn't an air pump at all in these shots, so that should help to date it. But for some reason, I just haven't got dates on these ones. Slightly closer view.
You've got it's got the vacuum brake fitted. You can see the pipe at the bottom there beneath the nameplate running and coming in the smoke box.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean there were modifications to do every time, weren't there? So it's just a case of which one.
I'm being very Anunnaki. I think there's a different boiler because the dome's in a different place. Yes, so that Trevor and Sam might know better. It'll be the boiler that's on it now, which is 2000 and something, isn't it? I think they've all gone quiet, Dave.
I should have slipped.
I honestly can't remember.
I can't remember.
Your worship.
I think this one's 2003.
Right.
2003, Christopher.
Yeah, I think so. And it would mean that the previous one, double heading with Simpson, would be 1997.
Yeah, that sort of begins to tie in. So that's good. A fine shot with.
I think that's Ian Horde as pilotman. That's Mike Jakes on Winston Churchill.
Yeah,
and I think that's Ian Horde.
Yeah, definitely Ian Horde.
All right. I'll just rewrite my record. Right. Right, yeah. Looks as though I've got quite a bit of homework to do. Then we thought we'd slip in Richard. He was 2003 to 4, and I don't know who took the photo, but and why they should dig out L plates. Then again, Trevor might be able to help with this one. I've left the shot with the gentleman with his back to us because I have a vague memory that he was one of Mr. Clarkson's employees who sort of unveiled the new headboard. But ignoring that for now, so Ian Birch has the same token which Graham was given on the first trip, and which later was given to Ian Page on the first Northern Rock trip.
I think that's the event day when we celebrated the 40 years, because we did invite Clarkson sort of relatives and associates to that. And that's Ian Lee in the background looking quite smart. So I'm guessing it was the day we celebrated it.
Yeah, right. As I say, that's good because it firms up my vague memory, and it means I can look out for a name because it'll probably be in the magazine. I've just been a little short on time this week. Apologies again. Another shot of that. We don't know who's having a ride. Then we had to get Jackie in, and I apologized to Jackie because I was looking for another photo from a different angle, but it does actually show what Jackie does very well indeed, which she was doing again today with Little Giant, and it's sparkling. There's a few more details in here which people can probably help me with, because the air pump has changed format a little bit more. We do at least have a date for that. I just
Yeah, I
can't
can tell you
find it.
exactly when that is. 17th of September 2016. That was my dad's 70th
Yes.
birthday.
Yeah, that's perfect. I did have it, but I just haven't got it on my notes.
So that is NG Neil Glover, Christopher.
Yeah, NG 46. So his year, obviously, date of birth, 50 at 70, because he was celebrating 50 years of volunteering on the railway and his 70th birthday.
Yeah,
Very good.
it
And
is.
the headboard is still sat in our lounge to this day.
Well, that's good. And you know, we've got the record, which is the important thing, because once I finish filling in the records, it does help future historians a little bit, even if in some cases it's an opinion rather than a fact, in my case. So we're up to the current driver, Phil, and we've also jumped forward a few years. So we're now at the 50th anniversary, and he's looking quite smug in that one. Just arriving. Then again, I haven't managed to figure out a date for this, but it was when the new crossover was installed. Phil was sent backwards and forwards to check clearances and things. I probably do have a record of that one, because I've got a feeling it might be one of yours, Christopher. So that at least will have a date on it.
That's one of mine.
Yeah, it will have a date.
Yeah.
I just haven't written it down. And then finally, sort of bringing us up to date, is the two society steamers. Not necessarily with the right drivers, but it's the engines that we're supposed to be concentrating on in this. And that's it. So we can take questions, comments, and I'll get my pen ready.
We'll have a look at the chat, Dave, and see what's there. So,
oh, are you volunteering to do the ratty air pumps topic? Because it won't be me. We'll try and get one of the engineers. We'll see if we can con one of the engineers into a history
of the air pumps.
Yeah.
They go up and down most of the time. And yep, auxiliary air compressor.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki.
Yes. And I think, I could be wrong, but that air compressor survived until Simpson's mercy mission after the workshop fire. And it lasted about 2 weeks. And I got a panicky phone call in my old job when I was sat watching telly one evening from Roger Munn at Romney. And I'd been watching on Facebook, because you can't outrun Facebook in this day and age, that there'd been issues with the pump.
Mm.
And when he rang, you want to borrow Kirklees' air pumps, don't you? How do you know? And he says, they'll be ready tomorrow. And then Martin Willie came and picked them up.
Right. Oh yeah, that ties in nicely.
Yes.
And
our correspondent from Glencoe has spotted the satellite dish on the pictures of the houses at Romney, so it's post 1980.
Yeah, was it a round one? It wasn't the square reel.
And 2003.
Yeah, that's
And Christopher
good.
is convinced it's double heading with Simpson in 1997.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that written down. Thank you.
And the bar car livery might date it. It probably would do as well, because that's had lots of different liveries. We'd need Mr. Romney himself to help us with that one. And when did the cab side number 9 get replaced by a works plate?
I think that was fairly early on. I don't remember seeing very many shots with the 9 on the
When-
cab side.
When it was Uncle Ronnie red,
Mhm.
it didn't have it. It's the darker red that came later.
Right.
Whether it was a society thing, we'll refer to the society chairman at the time. Sam, can you remember?
No, I have absolutely no recollection of that.
Guys, what happened? I can't remember the date, but if you look, the nameplate lost its little plaque underneath saying the property of,
Yeah.
and it went to a plaque on the cab side. And the idea was that the plaque that was underneath the nameplate were allegedly supposed to go on Douglas. So it must have happened somewhere before 2007.
Yes.
Whatever birth date it had, 1967 to 2007 or somewhere around there, it lost its little plates under the nameplate and got the cab side one.
Yeah. You do realise that all we're doing is giving me more homework to look at all these pictures again to see when it changed.
Well, there's a little bit more then for you. The going right back to the beginning, the one of the little bits of myth and legend that probably a few of you've heard is that the original tender was supposed to have been designed around Mr. Withers. I don't know whether anybody's ever heard that one.
Yes,
before.
yes.
And certainly by the time I got sat in it, and not too long after it, we gained the radios, and the first Redifon radios didn't take up a lot of space in that cab, and there was really only room for you and the radio, to be honest.
Yeah.
Such was the size of them when they went in 77. But you've got the derailment in 1967 there at Fisher Ground, and the locomotive was off the road again at Fisher Ground in the spring of 1978. Now, it finished the end of the 76 season, and it never ran at all in 1977, but the boiler went on to River Mite.
Oh, yeah.
That's a well-recorded fact, that. Which was quite something else, because we'd had River Mite wheezing and pottering around with its little old boiler for so long, and all of a sudden it got this what looked like a whopping great big boiler on, and off it went, and all of a sudden it was storming around the system with 10 bogies on, and you didn't have to worry about cleaning the fire so much.
Mm.
It came off the road in up by the water tank in the spring of 78, after its protracted rebuild through 1977, and the derailment was a result of some bad profiling on the wheels, I'm afraid, but that's a bit of a longer story. The air pump that was fitted to it there in 74ish or whatever it was, 75, it did eventually get taken off, and it was split in two to make two smaller ones. And I don't think, all joking apart, it would be possible to do a history of the ratty air pumps. And probably with a joke in it, unless you stopped in the middle like most of the air pumps did. And then you'd have to hit the person that was doing the presentation on the head, like you did with your hammer on the air pumps. But anyway,
I'll come in with a hard hat for that one.
Yeah, certainly. And certainly the shot there of the compressor on the tender we did go through a spell where we had this emergency compressor just inside what you may remember was Martin's workshop with a battery. And the idea was when anything went wrong very quickly, the idea was to just fling it all on and go. So that was obviously one of the occasions that, it's fling it all on and go. It just happened to have happened at a time where there was other things going on the railway.
Yeah.
But that's about me on that, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks, Trevor.
And
The story about the Mite being delivered without cones in the injectors, I think Di covered it and said that Clarksons had fitted what they were given, and if there weren't cones in it, then they hadn't been supplied. They were additionally supplied later, and I'm not sure. I've got a feeling Tom actually put them in rather than Clarksons doing it. But yes, it certainly was one of the stories. But really, if you have back issues, or we can possibly put up the sequence, it's much better to see the whole story as from Di's viewpoint.
Yeah, there was a lot of tales of myth and legend. The injectors being one of them. I don't know quite. I can't remember now. It's so long ago. But Graham used to tell of, I think, didn't he get up to Spout House somewhere with over 200 pounds of boiler pressure because the safety valves weren't lifting. I don't know whether there's something wrong with the springs in the valves. There's another one. Of course, it had a totally different regulator arrangement when it first came to the one that it's got now, and the stuffing box type that's on it now was trialled in 75 prior to that type being fitted on Northern Rock for 76. So that was a sort of a trial of it. The other little quirks were when it was new, well, for many years really, it had no form of operating the cylinder drain cocks other than you got out with a small key and opened and closed them. So you had to anticipate when you were going to set off and hope that the guard was ready for you to go. Otherwise, you sat there with a load of condensate building up. And Benny's still got the key to this day that was used for opening and closing the cylinder drains.
And is it true, Trevor, that you used to show off when yours was the only engine that had them?
Well, yeah, I mean, Northern Rock was the first one that was fitted with, they were steam operated cylinder drain cocks from new. So it was good to run into Ayrton Road and just flick them open and do a quick, shot of steam and then close them again, and the other drivers just had no imagination at all. There was all sorts of coal thrown at you and all sorts of signs, you can imagine, there's just no sense of fun at all.
Brilliant.
Was George a good shot, Trev?
Every time. It was well practiced.
He practiced on his guards, if I remember correctly.
That's right. That's right.
Not sure about. Is that the new regulator?
I think Nicky was commenting, and Trevor picked the story up.
All right.
And Northern Rock being the first of them to have steam operated one.
Is that it?
And of course, if Dial like this plug, if anyone needs any back issues of the magazine to read the River Mite story, I'm sure the Society Sales would be happy to supply them.
For a small donation.
Of course.
Were all the drain cocks originally key operated then?
No, the ERT and the Esk, they had small taps on, so you could just get down, obviously with a little rag in your hand and flip them open and close, but the Mite actually had you needed a little key to turn them. They were just like a little lug, if you will.
Oh wow! But you literally had to get out to the side of the loco to open them and shut them.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I mean, if you were stood at Ayrton Road in the early days where we were still running reliefs, so you'd sometimes be stood at Ayrton Road for 10 minutes waiting for the second portion. Then you'd to get out and open the drains, because obviously you were standing there for too long to keep them closed.
Of course,
But obviously as soon as you saw the other one roaring in, then you were out, close them, and off you went.
Yeah. I guess you must have, in that instance, you'd have to just sit there and sort of preheat the cylinders and then get out, close them, and close the cocks, and then get back in and set off, kind of thing.
Well, there wasn't much science in it in those days, to be quite honest. You were that concerned about keeping the railway going around the system. It was just a case of get on and go, really.
All right, so just kind of send it up the blast pipe mainly.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you all. So we will stop the share there.